Hi, I am going to try this again and hope that I can talk to Fay of OKclarity about mental health. I'm just waiting for her to come in so I can invite her to come on. And hello. I don't do lives very often. They make me like really anxious. And I'm sure, oh, okay, here she is. Yes. Okay, let's go live. Did I do it?
Hey, how are
Hi!
you? It worked. It's working so
It
far.
worked.
How's it going?
It's good.
Alrighty.
I do not do lives very often.
Same
So,
here. Same here. Well, it takes
yeah.
everyone's got to start somewhere, right? Figure
Yeah.
it. So I think it was my phone that kept crashing. Like I think the Instagram was like it wasn't the latest version because my phone was so old. So this is a newer phone. So let's see what happens.
Okay. Okay,
I'm
let's try.
excited about that. Yeah. So thanks for being brave and patient with me.
I'm trying to make conversation on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like the less fun part probably. Alrighty, so where are we starting? Should we start like where we left off last time? You want to give like a little bit of an overview about what we're talking about?
Okay, we're talking about mental health,
Hmm.
and I am not a mental health professional, but I am someone who is very, I don't even think passionate is the right word, someone who depends on, like, I really need to be aware of my own mental health, and I need to, like, take care of it pretty actively, and I've been that person since as long as I can remember. So I have a whole bunch of strategies, and I can also talk about my journey because it's also something mental health changes with like circumstances in life and
Sure. Like you have to always be aware of your mental health. It's not like you're good one day and then like you can just pause, like
I
stop
do.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I always need to like check with myself about my mental health. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. I love that. So I guess I would call you like an advocate because you're a self advocate and then because even like you speaking about this is advocating for other people. Do you know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I've started to become much more open about the fact that I'm in therapy, and I see it just as like a really important form of self-care.
Hmm.
I've been with my current therapist for about 8 years, and she is phenomenal. And I just feel like it's expensive, and I feel like this is how I function by speaking
Hmm.
to my therapist once a week. So yeah, I've become much more open about it.
I love that. What made you become more open? Like, what was it like a self thing or other people like asked you to be open about it? I'm curious about that.
No, 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 nobody asked me. It was so, I just feel like everyone needs therapy. I know it doesn't, some people say it doesn't work for them. I don't know if like it really doesn't, or maybe they haven't found the right therapist, because there's
Mhm.
like I think there's a big gap between like an okay therapist, an adequate therapist, and like a really excellent one.
Right, and that's something you brought up last time where we got cut off, and I really want to talk about that. So I want to put that down as one of the things we talk about. We could talk about it right now. Like, what is the?
Sure. I've
Yeah.
had so many therapists, and like I never had a bad therapist,
Hmm.
but I've had therapists who basically, like, what I was doing was I was venting to them once a week.
Hmm.
And it was good because I process things verbally.
Hmm.
I really needed to like I have like a lot in my head. My head is like always going,
Hmm.
and it helps me to like organize it by talking about it. So it was fine, but um my current therapist is like so much more than that. And I just want to set a boundary here. I don't feel comfortable. I feel bad because she's so awesome. I feel like I should share her with the world, but I also feel like it's a boundary
Yeah,
that she can
yeah,
be my therapist.
I agree with you on
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
100%. But tell me, so like the difference. So you said the past previous therapist would just be more of like a venting session. So what's different about this therapist? I want people that are listening or will listen to the recording to know, like, what can I look for or expect out of an excellent like an excellent therapist fit. It's not only on the therapist, and I'm sure you can attest to that. But like,
Yeah, it's
what makes it
definitely
that like
a
fit?
relationship.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it has to work for both, right? And I like my therapist because she she'll give her opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that. And she'll help me process things. Reframing is a very powerful tool for me.
Mm-hmm.
I recently wrote a post about how I'm reframing anti-Semitism,
Mm.
and she's really helpful. And sometimes, and I do feel like I'm a little bit of a partner in it. Like, I will think about what am I going to bring up with her,
Mm-hmm.
and what are we going to talk about. And sometimes I will just tell her what I need. I will say, like, can you give me a sentence for this week? Which means, like, just something to keep going back to keep myself
Mm-hmm.
grounded.
Like an affirmation, or
Yeah.
like I love that.
Yeah.
So her giving her opinion, I think that's like a big deal. I think a lot of people like assume that therapists are all very quiet and just listeners.
Right.
And it's very important for people to know that that's not the case. Like, there are therapists that are much more active and much more directive, and you can ask that to your potential therapist. Or you could ask your current therapist, can you be more directive with me? Can you stop me and, you know, be more directive, or not let me talk the entire session and just vent, and like bring up a pattern or a theme or something for me to take away, so that I walk out of here with something to hold on to and to grow with, instead of just, you know, letting it be a dump session and then I move on and continue my life the same way I came in, you know?
Absolutely. And I do want to add that for me, I needed a Jewish therapist. Like, she's not in my community, which is fine and probably even positive.
Better, yeah.
Yeah. But I did need someone who, like, could relate to that, because it's like such a big part of me. I don't want to go explaining.
Of course.
I don't want to teach what it means to be Jewish. You know?
Totally. So this was not rehearsed. And like, you're talking to, you know, like founder of OKclarity, which is like a place for people to find therapists that are Jewish sensitive. Not everyone is Jewish, but most of them are. Not everyone's religious, but they're culturally competent to work with the Jewish community. But this was not rehearsed, guys. Just saying.
No, it's not
At all. Like, but it's so true, and it's kind of like obvious to the person that's in it, right? Like, you know that, like, you don't need to spend months, or, you know, think you're like making so much headway and this therapist really gets you, and then like you're 6 months in and there's like this part of your life that they totally don't understand, because it's so like entrenched with the community, and it's just such a different system than anything they've ever heard of. And then it's like, what do I do now? So then it's like, okay, let's spend the next 4 sessions explaining and being like Wikipedia, you know, for the 2021 to this therapist, so that I could proceed.
Yeah, and I know people who've done that, and I didn't even realize how important it was, or like what a privilege it is in a sense, because
Mm-hmm.
there are actually a lot of Jewish therapists, until I started following Rachel Cargill, and she talked about the importance of Black therapists
Mm.
for Black people, or people who can really understand the
What's her name?
Rachel Cargill.
How do you spell her last name?
Carg Cargle.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, she's an incredible anti-racism advocate, and
Mm-hmm.
owns a bookstore. She does everything, but she really talks about the importance of therapy for marginalized identities, and how important it is to be, you know, culturally competent in that way. You don't, like, I think the last thing you want from your therapist is for your therapist to be like, are you sure it was racist? Are you sure it was anti-Semitic? You know,
Right.
like,
Or
you
this
don't
is just your anxiety.
yeah.
You need to know where those words and those kind of like catchphrases that therapists use, which they come into, they're there for a reason and they're helpful in some ways, but then there are ways that they can be completely destructive if used in the way. So,
Right.
100%. So you're saying asking your therapist for an affirmation, her being more directive, giving her opinion, yeah, like those are things that like differentiate. And like, I guess maybe if you could speak for a minute about like what's your part in the therapy. So you said that you come like prepared with something, like you are pushing yourself forward, right?
Yeah. So I used to have this ritual back before the pandemic, which is I would, like, going to therapy was like a part of like a whole self-care thing, where I would take the train to
Mm-hmm.
her office, and I would get myself a cup of coffee, and I would walk a little, and it was just like, it was heaven.
Yeah.
And now
You're like bringing it's like nostalgic, you know, like
right. And now I'm like, Zoom. I'm on Zoom. Hello, therapist.
right.
But what I would do is I would think about, like, I would go over my week and think about, what do I want to talk to her about? often we wouldn't talk about what I thought we would talk about.
Uh-huh.
And it's also interesting because I'll also come in thinking, oh, I'm in a really bad place this week, or I'm in a really good place. And sometimes the therapy session will not go the way I thought it would. But
Mm-hmm.
something really important that I want to bring up is that sometimes I have feelings about my therapist. Like sometimes I feel angry with her, or sometimes like I want something from her. And we've developed enough trust in the relationship that I'll tell her, I'll be like, I'm feeling really angry with you right.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen that often, but I'm honest to the point of like I feel like I I really don't have shame in my sessions with her, and I'll bring up how I'm feeling so that we can kind of look at it and talk
I
about it.
love that. I love that. And that's like the key ingredient to a successful therapeutic relationship. Like, so my question to you is, was it always like that, or was that like a maturity or a muscle that you built? And do you get what I'm saying? Like, is it something you had to work on, or it came naturally?
I'm
Um,
a very open person.
mhm.
Like I I would probably be so much more open here if I didn't feel concerns about like my family's privacy.
Mhm.
Um, so no, I don't feel like that was something I especially had to work on. I like obviously I had to build trust with her. Um, I think right away I immediately felt this like this I felt this sense of safety.
Mhm.
Um, so that like once I felt safe, it was like, okay, I can be myself. I cannot filter myself.
Sure.
And also like I'm interested in therapy, like I'm interested in psychology, like aside from my own psychological journey. Like I
Uh-huh.
minored in psychology, and like I find all this stuff fascinating. So
Sure.
I'm like, sure, let's use this, you know.
Right. And that really helps though, because it's like, I was just thinking as you're saying that, because you're using your observer mind. Like when you're going, you're not taking things so personally. It's like, oh, this is a human tendency. Okay, let me understand like where this tendency comes from for people, not just me. And it's not about me. And it's not like, oh, this was my childhood, or this is like, I'm doomed. You know, it's not like another label. It's more of like, this is so interesting. I enjoy learning about this. It's educational.
Yeah, I'm
That's
very
a
big
massive
on that.
difference.
I'm very
Right.
big on that with my children also. Like if they're
Mhm.
feeling something, like it's good. You want to recognize how you're feeling and allow yourself to feel it. Like
Mhm.
we have a lot of feelings in our family. I say that all the time. Like we just do.
That's well,
There's there's just
that's
lots of
emotional
feelings.
health. That's emotional health 101, right? Like that's really important.
Sometimes it's exhausting, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, emotions drain us, right? So it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love that. Okay, so you're saying that's how you make the most out of therapy. You prepare. You don't always. It's what's you said something interesting actually, that like a lot of times you'll come in with one perspective of how you're doing, or and then you'll leave with the opposite. Kind of like it will be like an emotional switch.
This
Or
happened last week. Last week,
really.
I was like, oh my gosh, I had such a hard week this week. I'm going to tell my therapist all about it. And then as we were talking, I was reflecting on like positive things.
Wow.
And I told her, see, that's enough. Like I told her, I was like, oh, I really didn't think this was a good week, but now I'm reflecting with you. And I think I'm actually in a better place than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And also another thing I want to add is that like sometimes I'll always feel lighter after therapy, but sometimes I'll feel like, wow, that was really heavy
Mm-hmm.
and we did a lot. And sometimes like it won't be as deep. And I really think that like, people need to be okay with that. Like not every session is going to be like, oh my God, I had a breakthrough about my childhood.
Right, right. And even though you just said that, like, you always feel lighter, I think a lot of people don't always have that experience, and that's normal too. Like, it's depending on who you are, what you're working on, your therapist. Like, it's okay to not feel great after at all.
Yeah.
And, like, that's part of the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I'll have feelings about like other people
Like,
who
especially if you're
came
angry
up.
at her, right? Like, you leaving, you're angry. I don't think that feels like, oh, I
Yeah.
feel lighter. It's like, no, now you give me another emotion to contend with.
Yes, 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 absolutely. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
but it helped me like find that emotion. You know what I
Totally,
mean?
totally. And also you're at that, like, you have that observer mind. Like you have that, like, oh, this is interesting. Like this is something I'm learning about myself. So you find it so interesting. So all of a sudden it doesn't become this like a burden, versus it's more almost like you're watching something. It's what's that word? I'm losing that word, but
I give myself a little bit of space and distance.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's also related to shame and like
Hmm.
just accepting that like you're like a big thing that my therapist will say is like you're allowed to feel any way you want. Like you're allowed to have feelings. And my kids now parrot, obviously I've started saying that to them because now they'll parrot it back to me. I'll be like, you shouldn't be mad at me. Why are you mad at me? And they're like, I'm allowed to be mad at you. And I'm like, yeah, you are. But
That's adorable.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so yeah, just that like it's okay to have feelings, even uncomfortable feelings is like a big, like being able to tolerate that is a very big thing for me because I often have uncomfortable feelings and thoughts.
Sure. Anyone that's an emotional or like a deep thinker, I think, and feeler, like that doesn't avoid them and embraces that, will probably at some point contend with those type of things. You said something else that was interesting about reframing, that like that's something that you work on and you find that so that, and to me that's very interesting because it's something more recent that I've been like very much focusing on. So go for it. Tell me about the reframing and how you do it.
Okay, I'm going to give you an example from when my son was really young. For some reason, I thought of like one way that I show love is feeding. I'm sure I'm not like the only Jewish person who's like that. So I would make he was a toddler then, now he's 17. I would make him dinner and he was picky and he wouldn't like it. And I really took it as a rejection. And my mother, who's a therapist, said to me, like, it's not about you. Don't let this be a fight. Like, this is just so not worth making it a fight or a power struggle. And I was able to listen to her and just something clicked in my mind. And then that was off. And then there was it was like he was eating or he wasn't eating. He liked what I made. He didn't like what I made. It was food. It wasn't related to like his relationship with me. And, I'm very grateful to her and I'm very glad that I was able to do that. I honestly have so many examples like that. I really, reframing is very powerful because I have these lines in my head that go over and over, and they can either be empowering, they can be disempowering. So to be able to think of something in a positive or empowering way is really important.
Sure. And the ability to reframe everything, like a mentor of mine taught me, the ability to reframe is like probably one of the most important skills to have.
Yeah.
Because everything can be reframed, like everything, even if it's reframed to just like a better feeling thought. It doesn't have to be, oh, this is the best thing that ever happened to me and completely delusional, but just a better feeling thought. It's like, oh, this is this is the stage that he's in right now. And like, I can accept that for what it is versus like, this is about me. I'm not a good mom, like, and that being able to.
Do we have time for me to give like one more example?
Please, I was going to ask, but I don't want to.
Okay, great.
Yeah, go for it.
I mentioned this last time. I didn't mention it here. I'm a highly sensitive person. So like I feel my emotions very strongly. So my youngest daughter, when she was like, I don't know, when she was a baby, when she was 2, I had this constant feeling of like, oh my God, this time would slip away. So whenever I felt like overwhelmed with like love and adoration for her and how delicious she was or something like that, I would also feel this sadness of like, this is going to go away. She's not going to be 2.
Yeah.
And again, this is an example where my mother helped, and my mother said, like, don't do that. There's no reason. If you like, you're going like, allow yourself to enjoy those moments and know that you're going to have more moments like that. And I realized, yes, like if I can have this intense joy, and I do, I'm very lucky to like really, really enjoy my children. If I enjoy her at 2, like I'm still going to enjoy her and have those intense feelings of love when she's 5, which she is now. And, spoiler alert, I still love and adore her.
Right.
But I was able to let go of that, like, sadness.
That negative, right, like disempowering. So what would the reframe be, just for people that are less, like, emotionally or sensitively inclined?
The reframe is, if you're the reframe is, as somebody who feels things deeply, this intense joy that I feel, I will feel again.
I like that. So that's what I'm saying. Like that, what's like that one sentence that you ask your therapist for? That's what I was saying. Like, what's that one sentence in that example? So there's always a reframe. There's always that one sentence where it's like, I can feel the joy now and I can choose to feel it again, and I will feel it again. So like, I don't have to hold on to the joy with pain that it's not going to be here again, or it's going to leave.
Yeah. It's just I found it like extremely empowering. Like I'm able to enjoy where she is now. And like, I know that I'm just going to keep enjoying her at every new stage, and my other children too, in case like leave them watch it at some point.
In case they watch this.
I know I love and adore all of them, but there's like something special about the youngest where you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to have a kid this young again. At least for me, that was my experience.
Right. I can hear that. Okay. So let's wrap up, I guess. So takeaways for people that are like in their mental health journey, what would you say?
Um, I would say be aware of how you're feeling. Maybe from
Mm-hmm.
like there are apps that help you. If you can be in therapy, be in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Go to that observer place. Just be curious about why
Mm-hmm.
you feel certain things,
I love
and
that.
and try to release shame for whatever you're feeling. Like try to just like you're allowed to feel how you're feeling, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's okay.
Mm-hmm. And share. I think the number one way to release this shame is to share it with somebody that has somewhat trust, that you have somewhat of a sense of trust with. So it's, if that's your therapist, or even if it's someone else that you feel trustworthy with, share
Yeah,
what you're
my
shameful
support
about. But
system. Yeah,
say
my
that again.
yeah, I definitely don't only process these feelings with my therapist. I have, thank God, I have friends, I have family, I have a
Mm-hmm.
support network, and like I'll talk to them about things, and you know, yeah, it talk processing things verbally or writing
Mm-hmm.
really really helps.
Knowing how you process, which is like what you said back to the first point of, know thyself, get in touch with yourself. How do I process? Am I a verbal processor? Am I a written processor? Am I, a crier processor? However you process, let that be your process. You said something else I had written on my notes, how to ask for help. Like you said, that was like a big piece of your journey and asking for help. Do you want to touch on that for 2 minutes? We have like 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. When my son was born, I had a really traumatic labor, and I had postpartum depression, and I thought there was something wrong with me, and I didn't know what to do. And it took me a year. It really
Wow.
took me a year. I just by accident heard an interview with Brooke Shields, who had just written about her postpartum depression,
Wow.
and hearing it, and was like, she said how she was scared that people would take her baby away. And I was like, oh my God, I'm always scared that the doctor will take my baby away from me and say, like, you are an unfit mother. And
Uh-huh.
then realizing that, and realizing, okay, I need to ask for help. And it's really, really, asking for help can sometimes be like the most difficult thing to do. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I would advise people to like even just practice it, because you don't want to like say, listen, I think I need help. And if your significant other, or whoever it is, doesn't really hear you, you're just going to feel like shattered. Like, just make sure you have someone's attention and ask for help that way, even if it's like you're calling someone.
Mm-hmm. And that, I like what you just said. If I think what you said is that, don't say I think I need help. Maybe say like I need help. Like really be direct about it instead of like
Yes.
you
Yes.
think. And they're like, no, I think you're fine. Everyone goes through this.
No,
So,
you need
yes,
someone who's going to hear what you're saying, and you can
right.
tell them, I need you to listen to what I'm about to tell you. It's not an easy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So be direct, be strong, and be assertive, which is probably the hardest thing to do when you're in such a vulnerable space.
It's so hard. It's so, so hard.
But you got to do it, guys. Got to do it.
Yeah, no, you really like just
Yeah.
save yourself and just get yourself the help that you need. Yeah.
Well, all right. And last thing before we wrap up is your ways of like dealing with your mental health as self care. What are the ways? So we know therapy, we know writing. What are other things?
Coffee,
Coffee.
taking social media breaks. I just took one
Okay.
for over a month actually,
Wow.
and I really needed that.
Yeah. What does
Friends.
that look like, by the way? Zero social media? Like you delete the apps
I
or
delete
limited?
the Yeah, I delete the apps. I do.
Like,
And sometimes I'll even mute like text chains if I know that it's stuff that's like really upsetting to
mm-hmm.
me. So I just like I just try to kind of take care of myself. And if like I lapse on certain things, like I haven't really been working out lately, like I constant self-forgiveness. My friend Meg says that, and I just
Mm-hmm.
like that's part of it. Sometimes my
I like
self-care will look like exercising, and sometimes it will look like not exercising.
mm-hmm. So constant self forgiveness, friends, family, coffee, therapy, writing. Do you write other than being on social media writing, or you'll write?
I do. I
Okay.
do. There is this website, 750 Words, and
Okay.
it's based on the artist's way. I'm forgetting the author's name. I learned about it
Read
from
this book, I think, so but I forgot the name also. Yeah.
it was recommended by Lisa Renee Hall, who is also
Okay.
someone who's an incredible mentor of mine for highly sensitive people. And so the idea is morning pages is as soon as you wake up, you write 3 pages worth of just like you're totally not unfiltered.
Like
That's right.
subconscious almost. It's like you're,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's so cool. I
Yeah.
never heard of that. Okay, we have to do like another conversation on it.
750words.com. It's
Okay.
$5 a month. But it's really, really helpful for getting yourself into a space every
So
day.
you're paying them to do what? What are you paying
They're
them?
they're hosting it. They have your words. You can write it's just this blank page. But you could do it on a notebook for free,
Right.
right? 3 pages on a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere. That helps me be accountable. It has like a lot of things that help you be accountable. And tools are just so important. So whenever, you can find something to help you, just.
Sure. So you do that every morning? Like you write 3 pages unfiltered?
Yeah, I try to, yeah.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. And what do you find it's helped you with? Like, what do you think is like?
Oh, sometimes I'm upset and I don't know why. So it'll like help me get to that, and
Get to that.
I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what's bothering me.
Wow.
Sometimes I hate it. I feel like a big resistance to it, and like I'll just be curious about that. And it helps me feel lighter. It helps me like get rid of like the muck.
Sure. Like whatever that like old unprocessed like debris from the day before or from your subconscious that just needs to like get out. It's so
exactly.
smart.
Or like all the things I need to do. I love making lists. So like all the things I need to do for the day, and then I get them out. I like getting things out of my head. And getting it out of head looks like putting it on paper or typing it or writing it down. So,
I'm very similar in that way. So I totally get that. Like whenever anyone asks me like, what should I do with this anxiety? I'm like, figure it out, like write it out. First understand what's going on there. And then you'll deal with it. Like then you can battle it from paper. For me, that like always works. So
I tell my kids also, like, if they can't fall asleep, to just like write down every single thing in their head, get it out, and hopefully that'll help.
I like that. That's like an amazing parenting tip. I like that.
I'm trying. I'm really trying.
You're not trying. You're doing. You're accomplishing. You're amazing.
Yeah.
Anyways, Shoshana, it's been real. We'll do this again.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Have a good rest of the day. Thanks, guys, for joining in. Bye-bye.
Bye.